I can't leave the people here and walk out. I can't let them be sacrificed to save myself. I can't do it.
So Glazer turned a group of housewives and their husbands into Moses, mothers organized to stop environmental sins. And every Gibraltar incident became a media event.
Free assembly.
She also used her inheritance to hire attorneys from one of the best law firms in Dallas to challenge Gibraltar at state regulatory hearings and in court.
Compliance is not promises or public relations campaign.
Because of Glazer's efforts, reporters began looking into the problems at Gibraltar, and state and federal regulators started paying more attention to the company's continuing violations. In November '92, the Texas Attorney General sued Gibraltar to stop violating the Clean Air Act. And in January '93, federal agents from the Environmental Protection Agency and the FBI launched a criminal investigation into possible falsification of records.
It's not surprising there's been an investigation. These people want to close this plant. They will stop at nothing.
What this company has been experiencing from Phyllis Glazer is environmental McCarthyism.
I'm their worst nightmare, and darn proud of it.
We are proud to be professional environmentalists, and we thank you for the opportunity to express that.
With Glazer attacking on all fronts, Gibraltar staged a demonstration of its own, bussing in supporters and employees to turn this state hearing into a company pep rally.
I am an employee at Gibraltar Chemical Resources, and I do say that with pride.
We attend monthly safety meetings to keep up to date.
Our records are double-checked, not only by us, but by the management team. And
it was a heart-rending thing to hear those people talk about how well they thought the company performed. I couldn't have been more pleased.
But Mr. Mobley might not be pleased with what we heard from some other employees who asked us not to reveal their identities for fear of losing their jobs at Gibraltar.
We were just pressured to get the loads out with no regard to the safety of the employees.
The equipment we use is old and worn out and completely inadequate for the job.
People are constantly doused with chemicals that stay on their clothing all day, all night, that soak right into the skin.
Are workers commonly doused with chemicals?
Absolutely not. The regulators wouldn't allow us to run a facility like that.
Deny, deny. They never did anything. They didn't even smell any odors.
The matter before you today is extraordinary.
Finally, last fall, after years of company denials and government inaction, a showdown at the state capitol. Phyllis Glazer, John Mobley, and Gibraltar President Mike Stark, all present.
The increase in temperature and pressure was so great in the tank that it blew the mixer gasket out of the top of the tank.
There had been yet another accident at Gibraltar, and the company had waited more than 24 hours to report it, in violation of the rules. The newly formed Texas Natural Resources Conservation Commission was voting on an emergency order to temporarily shut the company down.
We blew it. We flat blew it.
While apologizing for the incident, Mobley said shutting the plant down, even temporarily, was unnecessary, and that the problem was being blown out of proportion once again by Phyllis Glazer.
And I hope that you will realize that there is an effort to close this plant by a malicious group that doesn't use facts.
I'm asking that the state of Texas and this agency protect us from Gibraltar and its environmental insult to our health and environment.
This time, at last, the state of Texas acted.
I move that the emergency order proposed by the executive director be entered.
Gibraltar was ordered to cease operations until it could prove it was able to properly manage toxic waste.
I can't believe it. I can't.
Glazer had spent more than $500,000, draining her inheritance, but not her spirits.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, we won.
Gibraltar Chemical was forced to shut down for 2 weeks, then ran at reduced capacity for another month while equipment was repaired and chemical testing improved. And just 2 weeks ago, the company agreed to pay more than $1 million to settle the Texas Attorney General's lawsuit. About half of that money earmarked for upgrading the local water system. But air monitors and emission control devices mandated by the state have yet to be installed. The deadline is the end of this year. Phyllis Glazer says the battle is not yet over.
Texas will import an additional 350,000 tons of waste. Private companies can make a lot of money pumping much of that waste into underground caverns. But one of the largest companies in the field is facing tremendous criticism. And tonight we begin part one of our series, Danger Down Under. Channel 8 reporter Alan Berg has spent the last 2 months investigating the dealings of that East Texas plant. Alan?
Tracy, over the past decade, Gibraltar Chemical Resources has built itself into the second largest commercial injection well in the country. One hallmark of its history is prosperity, another is controversy. The plant is located near the small town of Winona, just northeast of Tyler, and the sounds of protest are echoing through East Texas.
Chemical storm. Did not warn. Chemical storm are still.
1 week after an accident sent a cloud of chemical fumes over Winona, a crowd gathered to shout at the plant responsible and the people who run it.
If anybody would like to go in and have coffee with Mr. Kitto and eat some of his donuts, Mr. Kitto can die and burn in hell. As far as we're concerned, let him sign our demands.
Gibraltar Chemical Resources does a $3 million per month business, accepting the toxic leftovers of a modern society. Its clients include 32 of the Fortune 50 companies, as well as a number of plants on the Texas-Mexico border. The plant handles some of the most hazardous substances produced by man: benzene, arsenic, even old Navy torpedo fuel. The toxins are transferred by a maze of pipes to storage tanks. Eventually, then, much of the material finds its way to the well inside this white hut, where it is pumped several thousand feet into the ground. The waste travels inside a cement-encased pipe to a cavern 5,300 feet below the earth. On the way, it passes through an aquifer that provides water to more than 400 Texas communities and water supply companies. The company has testified the waste will not leak for 10,000 years, yet many feel Gibraltar is rolling the dice with this region's future.
We were here first, the way we look at it, and they came in from outside. If they wanted this well so bad, why didn't they drill it in their backyard instead of mine?
Complicating the relationship is a long history of problems at Gibraltar, almost 100 citations in the past decade for offenses ranging from chemical spills to storage tank leaks that posed a threat to the environment.
I got tons in there.
Phyllis Glazer says she spent more than $100,000 in her effort to shut the plant down.
I was just a housewife. I moved out my husband's hot tub in order to put in an office that I needed. This is headquarters. This is the war room.
Glazer is not Gibraltar's only worry. A former worker says the plant accepted medical waste.
And there was hair and skin, and one of the guys found an eye socket.
Another says a falsified lab sample contributed to an explosion.
You know, it just shook all the building, woke everybody up within a couple of miles. The blast could be felt a mile away.
Claims like this have led to a probe by a task force composed in part of the EPA Criminal Investigation Division and the FBI. They currently are examining company files to determine whether Gibraltar broke the law.
They're checking our records to see whether we have been handling waste properly. I think when we get through with that analysis, we'll find that we don't have a problem.
Part of Gibraltar's operation already has been shut down by the Texas Attorney General's office because of persistent odor problems. People who live near the plant say chemical fumes would burn their eyes and throat. Several say they have become sick to their stomach.
I can smell it from my house, and I'm over a mile away from it.
You can't even barbecue outside on some nights. We don't know what we breathed.
I do believe and acknowledge that there has been some nuisance odors in the past, and we've been cited for them, and we'd like to stop that. We want to work with the community on this.
They are in a negotiation mood.
Attorney Fran Phillips was hired by Glazer to help mediate the dispute between the activist and the plant. Suspicion on both sides runs deep. And since Gibraltar provides 200 jobs, some in Winona think the protesters are the problem, not the plant.
I feel like that the opposition has done us a little bit of harm real estate-wise and publicity-wise. I feel like they have. I think they've spoken out without any concern for the community.
There's 3 of them in the truck.
The argument has developed a nasty undertone.
Had gun belts on, had all that stuff.
Phyllis Glazer says animals on her exotic game ranch have been mutilated. Marty Williams, another critic, says her horse has been shot. One of our sources says he's been threatened, and John Weldon, another former worker who talked to us, says his dog was poisoned. Glazer videotaped the animal mutilations, which she says occurred after she spoke at a public hearing.
We assume this was cut off and laid here.
They come out here just to kill something, not to take it to eat it or anything else, just to kill it, to send a message, I think.
Head of a deer, the tagged ear is removed.
But all the tags are missing, so somebody's saying, here's a tag, give me my money.
Gibraltar vehemently denies any role in the incidents.
I can't say that they've done it. I don't know who's done it.
Over the years, Gibraltar has survived an exhaustive process of hearings, studies, and research. Now the company faces a scrutiny of federal investigators as well as that of the community. Because in this business, a mistake can last a lifetime.
What's that smell? They don't know.
The accident which prompted the protest is still under review by the Texas Attorney General's office. A private firm hired by Gibraltar has written a report that clears the company. It says the fumes which were released were not of a high enough concentration to cause any health problems. Tracy?
What's coming up tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, a more detailed look at the roots of the EPA and FBI investigation. We've talked to several former workers who outline numerous instances where Gibraltar allegedly placed its employees and the community at risk in the way that it handled these volatile toxic substances. Part 2 tomorrow night at 10. Chip?
Okay, thank you very much, Alan. Toxic waste is also...
Channel 8 reporter Alan Berg was the first news person in the country to begin investigating the GM pickups. And Alan joins us now with his latest investigation into the dealings of a hazardous waste handling company in East Texas. Alan?
Tracy, Gibraltar Chemical Resources will put an estimated 40 million gallons of toxic waste into the earth this year. It provides a service for which there is a growing need, but at the same time, several former workers at the Smith County plant allege the company, in a number of cases, handled these toxins in a way that was slipshod at best. Here's part 2 of Danger Down Under.
We had total run the place at night. You could do anything you wanted to.
Night shift was the shift to be on.
Skeleton crew on it. I've seen alcohol out there, drugs out there.
The safety just went down.
Talk to someone who used to work here, and they tell you this is the witching hour.
They'd get into mines to where they'd have a tank full of something and wouldn't know what to do with it. And all of a sudden it's gone.
State and federal regulations dictate Gibraltar test every load of waste it receives. Accurate tests, though, depend on accurate samples. And 2 former workers say they saw a wide gap between regulation and reality. For example, chemicals often separate into layers inside the trucks.
And if you got that sunk that sample bottle down in there to the middle layer and opened it up, you wouldn't get nothing but pure water.
And therefore, if it was just mainly water, well, then it could be sent anywhere.
Gibraltar officials say this is news to them.
This is a sample that we're required to use, and it's the most efficient and accurate one we know of to use. And any specific allegations of somebody trying to, I don't know what their motivation would be to try to overcome that, but I can't speak to them.
Our sources say the motivation was simple.
And they were growing so fast at that time, they didn't have time to do everything that they were supposed to.
We know in order to keep our job that we have to do it, we'll do what they say, and we can't rock the boat.
Over the past several years, Gibraltar has grown from a small regional company into a hazardous waste powerhouse. It now handles roughly $3 million worth of toxics a month, making it the second largest commercial injection well in the country. Former workers say, though, that sometimes business grew faster than the ability to handle it. Danny McMahon claims Gibraltar played a shell game to hide waste that had been stored too long on site.
We would just switch it from one tank to the next.
John Weldon recalls conversations he heard in the lab.
And one would make reference to the fact, well, we can't run the spectrum analyzer. And they said, well, just fill out the charts anyway.
Both of these allegations, if true, would mean Gibraltar has broken the law. In fact, a task force composed in part of the EPA Criminal Investigation Division and the FBI is currently reviewing documents related to the allegations.
They came in and asked for certain records. I think when we get through with that analysis, we'll find that we don't have a problem.
In 2 cases, though, Gibraltar's own records do hint of problems. For example, on June 23, 1990, 15 minutes after midnight, there was a fire and explosion at Gibraltar. The company wrote it was not able to obtain a sample that accurately represented the sludge at the bottom of an incoming truck. Our source says the sample was altered. Therefore, one of the chemicals was not detected.
And since the sodium went into the tank in big clumps, it produced a hydrogen gas and caused the tank explosion.
Gibraltar also states in its corporate literature it does not accept PCBs. Yet in August, Gibraltar discovered PCB in the range of 1,200 parts per million, 24 times higher than what the company is permitted to handle. During the state investigation of the incident, Gibraltar admitted it didn't test every incoming truck for the substance.
PCB analysis required, depending on the material, an hour to 2 hours to complete. So when you're having 20, 30 trucks a day and then hundreds of drums coming in, it's not really possible to do that many PCB tests.
Gibraltar has since broadened its testing program. Former workers say other forbidden waste was disguised in the company's fuels program.
That's where the medical waste was blended off into, was the fuels program.
In its fuels program, Gibraltar blends together toxic chemicals. It then pays cement companies to burn the mixture in special kilns. Cement companies test loads which arrive from Gibraltar, but the procedure varies from plant to plant. This former worker says they knew that.
Anything that can be traceable is burned at Gifford Hill.
Gifford Hill is now North Texas Cement. A company spokesman said Gifford Hill did not test every incoming load for every substance. The spokesman also said, though, that to his knowledge, Gifford Hill never had any problems with fuel provided by Gibraltar.
I believe we've got a system of checks and balances here that works, and that we don't mishandle waste, and that whatever has been alleged by these employees is incorrect.
None of the people we talked to still work at Gibraltar, but the stories they tell have attracted state and federal investigators who are trying to track the path of chemicals, which either go up in smoke or go down into the earth. It is a journey into a world of unknowns.
After it gets down, 5,000 foot in the ground, who's going to know the difference?
Last night, we noted that Gibraltar disposes of waste from 32 of the Fortune 50 companies. One of them, General Dynamics, informed us today that it canceled its contract with Gibraltar last May after conducting a performance audit on the way Gibraltar was handling General Dynamics waste.
I'm just wondering, we've talked about the success that Gibraltar has enjoyed, but Alan, why is this such a popular way to dispose of waste?
It all goes back to economics. The cost for injecting waste into the ground is only between $10 and $50 per ton. By comparison, landfill disposal runs as high as $500 per ton, and burning it is even higher still.
And there's more yet to come. Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, final installment, looking at possible links between health problems people say they're having and this plant.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alan. In other news, for the past 2 nights in our series Danger Down Under, we've told you about the controversy surrounding an East Texas hazardous waste disposal company. Now, in a new development today, the Environmental Protection Agency shut down one of the company's 2 wells. The other well is also under investigation. As Channel 8's Alan Berg reports, this comes as the East Texas company fights battles both in the courts and the community in which it is located.
The EPA began its evaluation after a federal judge ruled in July that the agency did not follow proper procedure in permitting Gibraltar to pump toxic waste through a second well. The waste travels inside a cement-encased pipe through an aquifer that provides drinking water to 400 Texas communities and water companies. The toxins empty into an underground formation. In 1991, Gibraltar drilled a second well, which the company used for several months. But the EPA determined there was not a cement casing around an 800-foot-long section of the well. Therefore, the agency pulled Gibraltar's permit.
We are absolutely confident that there have been no waste escaping because of the various logs that have run. This happened to be a very, it's a technical problem.
The EPA also said it is re-examining the first well Gibraltar drilled and that it has called in the Criminal Investigation Division of the agency.
We have made them aware of the information we have, and we are also continuing to review it.
Knutson would not be more specific, and Gibraltar says it does not know what is in question. One former employee says he saw a fellow worker alter the graph, which monitors the first well.
He rigged it with paper clips to get it lined out to where it all looked nice and leveled out and pretty, and was actually pumping more fluid than we were allowed to pump.
Gibraltar also says its new monitoring equipment is hooked directly into the computer and that altering the graph would not hide the data here.
This is about 1 year old. This is a program written in-house by one of our own people.
This is just the latest in a long string of controversies involving Gibraltar, and some wonder why the company is still open.
When they can sit there and tell you what you can do in your own backyard with your septic system, and then they're going to stand up there and let a company of this magnitude operate, that makes me mad.
I'm like this gentleman. I like to get my 45 and go to town.
Now, I think we've tried everything that we can possibly do nicely.
Where do we go? We don't have nobody.
Many scientists believe pumping waste into the ground is one of the safest ways to dispose of toxic substances. Because of that, Gibraltar has prospered. At the same time, the company now faces intense scrutiny from state and federal authorities. The decision to pull the permit on the second well was a major blow. And there is still the ongoing investigation into the first well, the only means Gibraltar has left to conduct the business upon which it was built. Alan Berg, Channel 8 News.
In a statement this afternoon, Gibraltar's attorney wrote that the EPA decision was clearly inappropriate and not supported by the facts.
The link between chemicals and illness is a difficult link to establish.
But in a remote corner of East Texas, many are beginning to wonder whether a toxic waste handling plant is stealing their health. We've told you about Gibraltar Chemical Resources in a continuing series of reports. Now, after the most recent of several violations, the state says it cannot trust the company. The question in Winona is whether the plant's wrongs have left a toxic legacy. Channel 8's Alan Berg reports.
Thank you, Lord.
In Winona, prayers have become more urgent.
Now, Father, we need you right now. Every second, every minute, every hour.
Businesses have changed.
This has eye goggles, a lead apron, boots.
Joey started this contingency plan because
So have homes.
and I need to have us all change of clothes in case we have to stay away the night.
The Shaddix family keeps a bag packed by the front door in case they have to flee the plant upwind. Gibraltar Chemical Resources disposes of some of the most toxic substances produced by man. It's the third largest operation of its kind in the country. But a pattern of permit violations, chemical spills, and odor problems has a community blaming the company for its illnesses.
We need to know what to look for in our children. Symptoms that they have, symptoms that we have.
Reverend Sylvester Curry says many in his congregation are sick. Marion Steich endured 4 months of painful skin peels to treat a facial cancer.